Mercedes-Benz just wrote a check for $90 million to Coco Gauff. Not $50 million, not $60 million, $90 million over 7 years. And if you're wondering why Aryna Sabalenka might be feeling some type of way about this, well, let me paint you a picture. Here's the current world number 1. The woman who won 2 of the last 3 Australian Opens, the reigning US Open champion, watching a 19-year-old walk away with what might be the biggest endorsement deal in women's tennis history. And Mercedes didn't even give her a phone call. This isn't just about money. This is about Mercedes-Benz making a very public statement about who they believe represents the future of not just tennis, but sports marketing itself. And that statement has left one of the game's most dominant players on the outside looking in. Now, before we get into the fascinating dynamics of what just happened here, we need to understand how Coco Gauff ended up in this position in the first place. Because this story doesn't start with Mercedes. It starts with BMW, making what has to be one of the costliest miscalculations in sports marketing. BMW had Coco first. They signed her when she was just a teenager making waves at Wimbledon. You'd see her pulling up to tournaments in their cars. Their commercials ran during Grand Slam broadcasts. From the outside, it looked like the perfect partnership. A young American star on the rise, aligned with a prestigious German automaker. But according to people familiar with the arrangement, things were falling apart behind closed doors. The problem, reportedly, was that BMW treated Coco like any other athlete endorser. They wanted her face on advertisements, her name attached to their brand, but they didn't particularly want to hear her opinions on creative direction or social issues. Coco, on the other hand, wasn't interested in being just another pretty face selling luxury cars. She wanted to talk about sustainability. She wanted to be involved in campaigns that reflected her values. She wanted a seat at the table, not just a spot in front of the camera. When the split was announced, both sides called it mutual. But anyone who's watched enough of these corporate relationships knows what that means. One side wanted out, and the other side couldn't stop them. Coco walked away from BMW, and Mercedes-Benz was watching the whole thing unfold. Now here's where it gets interesting. Mercedes executives reportedly flew to New York right after the US Open to meet with Coco's team. They didn't come with a standard offer. They came prepared to make this the signature sports deal of the decade. $90 million over 7 years. A fleet of vehicles at her disposal. Creative control over her campaigns. Sustainability initiatives that she would personally oversee. And most importantly, they offered her exactly what BMW had refused to give her. A genuine partnership where her voice would be heard. The announcement was perfectly orchestrated. Coco was already in Beijing for a tournament when Mercedes rolled out a black EQS to the courtside plaza. She stepped out wearing white and silver, looking like she owned not just the tennis court but the entire automotive industry. The cameras went absolutely wild. And somewhere in Munich, you can bet BMW executives were having a very difficult conversation about how they let this happen. But let's get back to Aryna Sabalenka. Because while Coco was signing this historic deal, Sabalenka was in the middle of what might be the best season of her career. She won the Australian Open in January. She made it to the semi-finals at the French Open. She won the US Open in September, beating Coco in the semi-finals to get there. By any objective measure, Aryna Sabalenka is currently the best player in women's tennis. So why didn't Mercedes come calling for her? Well, according to industry analysts, this decision wasn't really about tennis rankings. It was about something much bigger. Mercedes was making a bet on cultural influence, on global reach, on the ability to connect with younger consumers who care about more than just horsepower and leather interiors. And in that calculation, Coco Gauff checked boxes that Sabalenka simply doesn't. Let's be frank about this. Coco is American, which gives her immediate access to the largest luxury car market in the world. She's already a household name in the United States that transcends sports. She's articulate. She's active on social issues. She has a connection with Generation Z that traditional athletes would struggle to match. She's also becoming incredibly popular in China, where tennis viewership has been exploding and where Mercedes sees enormous growth potential. Sabalenka, for all her dominance on court, doesn't have that same profile. She's representing Belarus under a neutral flag due to geopolitical complications. Her public persona, while authentic, is more reserved. She doesn't have the same social media following. And fairly or not, she doesn't offer Mercedes the same cultural storytelling opportunities that Coco does. Now, I want to be careful here, Because Sabalenka is an extraordinary tennis player who's earned every bit of her success. This isn't about diminishing her achievements. But in the world of endorsements, especially at this level, it's not always the best player who gets the biggest check. It's the player who offers the most value to the brand. And Mercedes clearly decided that Coco's platform, her voice, her cultural influence was worth $90 million. The timing of all this makes it even more pointed. Coco's first major campaign with Mercedes launched during the WTA finals in Riyadh. Mercedes logos were everywhere, courtside signage, on her kit, in every broadcast. And because Coco was winning matches and looking dominant, it didn't feel forced, it felt organic. Meanwhile, Sabalenka was also competing in Riyadh, also putting on an excellent performance, but without that same level of brand amplification behind her. According to Forbes, this deal ranks among the biggest athlete-brand partnerships of the decade. Bloomberg reported that the announcement added billions to Mercedes' brand valuation. That's not hyperbole. That's the market's real response to Mercedes landing Coco, and the ripple effects are already being felt throughout women's tennis. Other players immediately started using Coco's contract as leverage in their own negotiations. When someone signs a deal this size, it raises the ceiling for everyone. It forces sponsors to reconsider what they're willing to pay female athletes. Serena Williams posted her support, calling it a power move. Naomi Osaka said this was bigger than tennis, that it represented a fundamental shift in how athletes approach endorsements. And somewhere in all of this, Aryna Sabalenka had to watch the woman she beat at the US Open become the face of one of the world's most prestigious automotive brands. Now, Sabalenka hasn't commented publicly on any of this. And honestly, she probably won't. She's too focused on her tennis, too professional to let something like this distract her. But you have to imagine there's some frustration there. She's the world number one. She's won 3 of the last 5 Grand Slams. And yet when Mercedes was ready to write that $90 million check, they wrote it to someone else. The broader context here is that this represents a shift in how luxury brands think about women's sports marketing. Historically, these mega deals went to men football players, basketball stars, Formula One drivers. Women's contracts were smaller, their campaigns less visible. Coco's deal breaks that pattern because she's being compensated like a superstar, regardless of gender. She's on par with the top names in sports. And that's probably the most significant part of all this. Because whether Sabalenka has a deal this size or not, Coco getting one elevates the entire category. It proves that women's tennis can command these numbers. It forces other brands to reassess what they're willing to invest in female athletes. Mercedes is also making a long-term bet here. They know the automotive industry is changing. Electric vehicles, sustainability, appealing to younger consumers who value more than just luxury. These are the challenges facing every premium car manufacturer. Coco fits perfectly into that future. She's young, she's vocal about environmental issues. She resonates with exactly the demographic Mercedes needs to reach. For the next 7 years, Coco Gauff will be the face of Mercedes-Benz. She'll be driving their electric vehicles, appearing in their campaigns, representing their brand at major events around the world. And every time someone sees her in a Mercedes, every time one of her campaigns goes viral, every time she wins a major tournament while wearing their logo, Mercedes wins too. BMW, meanwhile, has reportedly signed a young football player in what looks like a reactive move. But the damage is done. Everyone in the industry knows they had Coco Gauff and let her walk away. That's the kind of mistake that gets discussed in boardrooms for years as a cautionary tale. So here's what I want to know from you. Do you think Mercedes made the right call choosing Coco over pursuing someone like Sabalenka? Or do you believe pure tennis dominance should have carried more weight in this decision? Is Sabalenka getting overlooked because of factors beyond her control? Or does Coco genuinely offer more value to a global brand? And more broadly, do you think this $90 million deal reflects Coco's actual market value, or is this Mercedes overpaying to make a statement and grab headlines? I'm also curious whether you think this changes anything for Sabalenka's legacy. Does missing out on this kind of mega deal diminish her accomplishments, or are on-court results all that really matter in the end? Leave your thoughts in the comments because I'm genuinely curious what the tennis community thinks about this. There are valid arguments on all sides of this debate. And if you want to stay up to date on the business side of tennis, all the endorsement deals and controversies that happen off the court, go ahead and subscribe. We cover everything from player contracts to tournament economics to the corporate partnerships that shape the sport. We'll keep you informed on everything happening in the sport we all love, both on the court and in the boardrooms where these massive deals get made.